Launched in the UK first in 2009, the black and grey combinations of the Tudor Heritage Chrono was one of the first watches to revitalize the brand along with the Black Bay. It was in production from 2009, but then in 2013 updated with the iconic blue-beige color theme, drawing inspiration from the original reference 7031, also named the Monte Carlo, which got its name from collectors as the dial resembled roulette tables at casinos in Monte Carlo. It is one of the most faithful Tudor watches that isn't an outright reissue, but closely resembles the original watch of the 70s. A shame that it never enjoyed the popularity of the Black Bay. Which leads us to the purpose of this video and the shocking news. It's been discontinued for 2023. If you take a close look at Tudor's webpage, sweeping past the endless sea of Black Bays, back in 2022, you could still see the Heritage Chrono on the web catalog. It's now gone. Authorized dealers were still receiving inventory of the watch, as this example that I have here today for the video is actually from 2022. The watch had a strong following back in 2009, where we didn't have much options for chronographs that are vintage styled back then. However, it's 2023 and there are more abundant options today, such as Breitling's Premier and also micro brands like Nevada Grenchen. Scrolling through Instagram, you'll see that the last time the watch was actually advertised was back in March of 2021, which coincidentally was the time that the Black Bay Chrono was just released as well. So you can see the writing on the wall for Tudor discontinuing the watch. I think that the lack of marketing is one of the main factors why this watch never really took off. Not wanting to dizzy you guys with the numbers, I'll put them on the screen for your reference. The numbers that do matter are its 50mm lug length and 12.7mm thickness. In every dimension, this watch is at least 10% larger than the original, measuring it at 42mm wide compared to the 40mm case of the original watch. Which leads me to my next point. The one that I truly appreciate is the case thickness at only 12.7mm. It seems to be one of Tudor's most wearable chronographs that is no longer available. The Black Bay Chrono actually measures in at a whopping 14.4mm thick. It definitely feels like a heftier watch, and I have seen it in person, tried it in person. I prefer the Heritage Chrono. Part of the reason why the case is so slim is because of the recessed case back, which is very odd for a Tudor or Rolex product not usually seen in the modern offerings, such as the Black Bay Chrono. It wears a lot like a Black Bay that is much thinner but doesn't appear to look thin due to the large flat surfaces of the case. On my 6.5-inch wrist, the most worrying dimension is the 50mm lug-to-lug length on the bracelet. This example is on a Vanguard integrated rubber strap, which I find to be more comfortable than the bracelet as it minimizes on the weight of the watch, which measures in at 165 grams. On a rubber strap, it comes down to 115 grams, and the overall curvature of the case and shape of it aids in maximizing the comfort. My wrist isn't overwhelmed by the case, but I certainly wish that it was a smaller watch. Thankfully, the ergonomics are great on this watch, especially on a rubber strap. As you can see, it is a watch that is right-sized for 2009, slightly oversized for 2023, but still very manageable. I was disappointed in the lume of this watch. I wish it was brighter. It uses superluminova on the dial plots, and the longevity and reactiveness of the lume is just average. I had wished that the 12 o'clock indicator on the bezel was also lumed. Much like its sibling the Rolex Daytona and its later brethren the Black Bay Chrono, the Heritage Chrono features screw-down crown and pushers, which is a very welcome feature, resulting in an impressive 150-meter water resistance for a chronograph. There is both fine and bold knurling done on the crown and the pushers, reminding you that this is a product that is from a revitalized, edgier, and more youthful Tudor of the 2000s. The pushers, they do feel great, and the overall positive feedback right down to the actuation of the chronograph is all very satisfying, even down to the click of the reset. Another reason why the watch never gained popularity was the lack of an in-house movement. This was before the time of Tudor's B01 movement. The Tudor T401 used here is a modified ETA 2892 with a chronograph module that offers 42-hour of power reserve. Impressive are the time grapher results, which I happen to have forgot to add to this video at the time of completion, measured in at around an impressive 4 seconds per day. The bezel is a very functional one, complete with 60 clicks and 12-hour markings. One could use the bezel to track a secondary time zone, making this a more versatile chrono than with a tachymeter bezel insert of the usual chronograph variety. The action feels great. Being 60 clicks, each click is very enormous but positive. The entirety of the watch is either finely brushed with a satin grain or polished, such as the side of the case. The top of the lugs have been finely satin brushed, so is the underside of the lugs and the case back as you see here. Upon closer visual inspection, you'll note that a delicate cutout chamfered edge separates the two surface treatments of the satin brushed lugs to the flat surfaces of the side of the case, which are highly polished. This is your classic Tudor Rolex product, a true and tried recipe that just works. I have to say the satin brushed lugs have a very fine grain that catches the light in a captivating manner, reminding you that Tudor certainly cares about the case finishing, and it shows. The dial is very functional. The left side is the 60-minute totalizer for each revolution of the chronograph hand, and on the right subdial you have the seconds for timekeeping. Finishing off that symmetry is the date at 6 o'clock. The dial color is exceptionally eye-catching, and my favorite part of the watch has to be the dial. Using blue and orange hues that perfectly contrast each other, you are reminded that this is a tribute to the 1970s boldness and funky character. The Tudor shield in each hour index is applied and done to an exceptional quality, no flaws that I can speak of, and just a delight to see. The chronograph hand is painted in a bright orange and has a fine texture at 4x magnification. You can see the quality and the attention to detail that's been done in the textured elements of the dial. The subdial hands are painted in a stark white to offer a sharp visible contrast to the blue and orange. It's all very striking. All of the printed elements on the dial, right down to the Tudor logo, the Geneve logo, and the numerals, are all flawlessly executed. They even have a high gloss sheen to them that can be observed up close when the light hits just right. So far, I am very impressed with the dial quality. Right down to the date window being a very clean cutout rectangle that at 4x magnification, I can even make out the perfect edges of the number of the date. Well done, Tudor. We often don't appreciate the great things until they're gone, and such is the case with the Tudor Heritage Chrono. It arrived just too early on the watch scene and wasn't marketed enough. I feel that it is my preferred choice compared to the Black Bay Chrono. The design is just far more original and interesting in my opinion. While these are no longer being offered at authorized dealers, I would suggest, if you're interested, asking for one in the system, as there may be remnants and it certainly is worthwhile getting one while you can. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you like the content, please consider liking and subscribing, as it greatly helps out the channel and helps me continue making the content.